Beasts might be a bit overlooked when compared to Beast Warriors and Winged Beasts, but many of them are still quite good. In this video, we'll be going over the absolute best ones that have come out before synchros were even a thing. And starting off at number 10, we have Baboon the Soul Eater. This is a level 4 Earth Beast with 1600 attack, and once per turn, lets you banish up to 3 monsters from your grave to have this card gain 300 attack for each until the end of your opponent's turn. Baboon was pretty much the first truly good beast monster. Having come out in the first few sets of the game, it was also one of the first few ways to use your graveyard as a resource. It used to be even better too. Due to a mistranslation, this card was able to banish any cards from your graveyard instead of just monsters, and it was much easier to load it up with spells than anything else at that point. In an era where the premium beaters were Gemini Elf and Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, Baboon being able to beat over them and wall them on the crackback was really huge. With enough fodder, it could reach an impressive 2500 attack, which beat over even the best boss monster of the time, Jinzo. Still, Baboon would begin to fall off shortly after this format, not only due to its effect eventually being rectified to only allow banishing monsters, but also because of the introduction of the Chaos monsters, who were generally a better payoff for loading up your graveyard. Still, the eventual release of Return from the Different Dimension gave people a very good reason to run this card again, as it was simply the best way to load up on banished cards. However, since Baboon Return was always just a rogue deck, this card is only good enough for the 10th spot on this list. And coming in at number 9, we have Green Baboon, Defender of the Forest. This is a level 7 Earth Beast with 2600 attack and 1800 defense. Its effect is that if a beast-type monster you control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can pay 1000 life points to special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. Green Baboon was a complete menace in the way that the TCG really never got to experience. When this card was first released in the OCG, its effect could trigger even during the damage step. This was a massive difference, as it meant you could trigger Baboon off of your other beast monsters being destroyed by battle. This made almost pure beast stacks viable overnight, as any of your monsters getting destroyed by battle or card effects would give you a 2600 attack beater, and things got even worse if you had multiple of them in rotation. This was especially nasty when paired with Giant Rat, another card we'll be talking more about later, as you can get multiple bodies off of crashing a single rat, at least one of which would beat any of the popular high attack monsters that people played. Of course, this led to the eventual limitation of Green Baboon, and we would receive it already pre-limited at 1 in the West. Having just one Baboon already made the beatdown deck way worse, since you had to pray you either opened it or your one Foolish Burial, and the card would also receive its errata not long afterward, which killed it completely. Still, even if we didn't really see that in the TCG, it's a certainty that many OCG players will have not so fond memories of this card. And at number 8, we have Koala, a level 3 Dark Beast flip monster with 1100 attack and 1800 defense. Its flip effect inflicts 400 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. Though they aren't really a thing anymore, burn decks were once an ever-present menace in the game. Koala may look pretty mild at first glance, but it was one of the best tools these decks had. Its decent defense stat made it a wall against a lot of utility monsters, which only really made its effect even feel harsher on the opponent. It would often burn for 1600 or 2000 damage, either because your opponent was clogged with monsters or because they didn't want to set a lot to play around Heavy Storm, which is like 1/4 of life points needed to kill you. When that was coupled with other burn cards like Magic Cylinder and Ring of Destruction, your opponent would quickly see their life points dwindle while they could do very little about it. Even if they did have beaters to clear the Koala in defense, burn decks would often max out on all their attack stoppers they could, like Gravity Bind and Nightmare Whale, leaving most decks helpless while they tried to draw into either Mystical Space Typhoon before their inevitable demise. Still, while it could feel unbeatable when the burn deck had drawn a god hand, there are many reasons why this strategy was only rogue at best in most formats, one of which is the next card on this list. And at number 7, we have Wombat. This is a level 3 Earth Beast with an effect that prevents you from receiving any effect damage. The best counter for Koala is ironically Wombat. This card gives you complete immunity to effect damage for the very low cost of your normal summon. Bringing this little guy out can invalidate everything your burn opponent has in their back row, before they even have a good opportunity to use them. As a bonus, it's a level 3 which can still attack under Gravity Bind, so it even pressures your opponent with its decent 1600 attack, If there's one thing people didn't like back then, it was losing to burn. It reached the point where you would see several more tournament tops for Wombat than there are for any burn decks. The amount of hate was really disproportionate to how good those decks were. Granted, the opportunity cost for using the card was very low. For 2 or 3 sideboard slots, you could be sure you would never have trouble with an entire deck type post Game 1, which must have felt really good back then. Wombat really fell off as the game sped up with the release of synchros and whatnot, but it can be hard to find a deck list from 2007 that didn't have this guy anywhere in their 55 cards, so it still deserves some respect all these years later. And at number 6, we have Yugioh or Panda. This is a level 3 Earth Beast with 800 attack and 1600 defense, with the ability to do piercing damage on defense position monsters. Also, its attack gets boosted by 500 for each monster your opponent controls. Yugioh or Panda might look somewhat underwhelming at first, but rest assured it was the best partner in crime to Koala, and one of the few cards that burn players played that wouldn't be stopped in its tracks by Wombat. While this card is pretty unassuming if it's summoned onto an empty field, or if your opponent only has a single monster out, it can really start putting in work in more complicated game states, especially if the opponent has set some utility flip monsters out. Though that sounds a bit out of your control, this is actually something burn decks could very easily set up with Ojama Trio. This trap card brings out 3 level 2 beast tokens with 1000 defense, except they go directly to your opponent's field. At any other point in time, this would have been pretty awful since they could just be synchroed or link summoned off. But back then, they were pretty much unremovable through natural means, since they couldn't be tributed for tribute summons. As a bonus, they also inflict an extra 300 damage to your opponent each time they're destroyed. This not only clogs up your opponent's field, it also single-handedly brings Panda to a respectable 2300 attack, letting you get some quite good damage in. This 2-card combo pretty much defines early burn in Yu-Gi-Oh! After all, the popular GOAT format deck Panda Burn has that name for a reason. And at number 5, we have Giant Rat, a level 4 Earth Beast with 1400 attack and 1450 defense. Its effect triggers when it's destroyed by battle and sent to your graveyard, letting you special summon 1 Earth monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck in attack position. Giant Rat is what we call a recruiter monster, part of the original series of recruiters, which are all monsters with 1400 attack that float into another monster of their same attribute with 1500 or less attack when destroyed by battle. These have all seen some play throughout the years, being generally dependent on how good their attributes are overall. Giant Rat is kinda in the middle. It wasn't played as heavily as the light or dark ones, but it's also much better than every other attributes besides those. The reason why these monsters were so good is that they give you decently statted threats that are hard to remove. Since if you beat over one of them, it can just float into another copy of itself. They can also offer you a toolbox of effects depending on how many targets you have in your deck. Giant Rat can not only float into tons of good utility monsters that are all small, such as Injection Fairy Lily, Neospatian Grand Mole, or Exiled Force, it's also one of the stickiest recruiters overall. This is because Giant Rat can float into other recruiters, namely the Zombie and some of the early X-Saber ones. This let the card see play in Earth, Zombie, and X-Saber decks, providing a ton of utility for all of them. Still, the fact that it floats only by battle sort of left it as just a thing of the past. And at number 4, we have Tiger. This is a level 3 Earth Beast that can special summon itself from your hand if you control a Gladiator Beast monster. You can tribute this card to shuffle a Glad Beast you control into your deck, and then special summon a different Glad Beast from your deck, and it's treated as if it were special summoned by another Gladiator. Despite not being one itself, Tiger was always one of the best cards in any Gladiator Beast deck. The Glad Beasts are all monsters which can tag into each other if they manage to battle successfully, letting you access powerful effects such as pops and advantage generation. Still, this made them really vulnerable to battle traps a lot of the time, and Tiger lets you get around that and cheat your Gladiator Beast out. The fact that it treats the Glad Beast as if being special summoned by one of its own is extremely important, since the main deck Gladiator Beasts only trigger when they're special summoned that way specifically. This lets you use Tiger as a 1-card way to access any Gladiator Beast in your deck, getting you the best effect for any situation at a relatively low risk. However, the reason why this card was so good was due to how it interacted with an Elemental Hero card of all things. Elemental Hero Prisma is a level 4 monster which can reveal a fusion monster from your extra deck and dump one of its materials from your main deck to change its name to the dumped material's name. One of the strongest combos in Glad Beasts actually involved this card, since you would go to Prisma, reveal Gladiator Beast Gyzaris, and then dump Gladiator Beast Bestiary. Then, Test Tiger would be able to special summon itself and target the Prisma, as it was now treated as Gladiator Beast Bestiary. You could then bring out Gladiator Beast Doris to reborn Bestiary, and then go into a Contact Fusion for Gyzaris. This 2-card combo will let you pop 2 of your opponent's cards with Gyzaris, and then also tag out for 2 Glad Beasts from your deck during the battle phase. Gladiator Beasts were a competitive threat for many years, and though their modern support leaves a bit to be desired, they're still not the worst deck out there. And at number 3, we have King Tiger Wanghu. This is a level 4 Earth Beast with 1700 attack and 1000 defense. While this card is face up on the field, any monster that's normal or special summoned with 1400 or less attack is immediately destroyed. Wanghu is pretty much the best card in the game when it comes to hating on smaller monsters, and 1400 is actually quite a harsh cutoff. It used to be a quite popular tech in beatdown decks as a way to deal with annoying small monsters that can't be beaten over, such as Spirit Reaper, and the very recruiters we've talked about already, which all fall prey to Wanghu. While it doesn't stop unsummoned effects, taking out the body essentially made it a summon negate against a ton of utility monsters, and even a lot of playmakers, letting it see some play as attack every so often even as the game sped up. The biggest limitation with this card was really always that you needed to be playing a very specific kind of deck to not get blown up by it as well, but it kind of fell off as there was just better stuff to run that also took up your normal summon. Funnily enough, this card would come back into the meta several years later due to the Chimera archetype. With many ways to search and cheat basically all Beast, Illusion, and Fiend monsters, the deck could afford to play some one-off floodgates like Barrier Statue of the Abyss, and of course Wanghu in the side, bringing them out against whatever deck was hurting them the most. This card may be old, but it can hose down modern archetypes like Sprite, Purely, and Yummy just as well as it hated on recruiters back in the day. And at number 2, we have Raikou Lightsworn Hunter. This is a level 2 Light Beast flip monster that, when flipped, allows you to destroy 1 card on the field, then you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Raikou is yet another card which had its effects changed throughout the years, though this is the only case where it actually became stronger with time. Raikou used to target for its pop effect, which was eventually changed to non-targeting destruction, an amazing thing to have overall. Still, even when Raikou did target, it was still an amazing card, certainly qualifying as one of the best flip monsters of all time. It didn't see play only in its own deck, where you can get amazing value off of its mills, but rather it was pretty much everywhere for a couple of years after its release. Being able to pop any card was a huge equalizer, since any monster short of Stardust Dragon hitting into it would just trade 1 for 1, and if you didn't care about that, you could start tearing at your opponent's back row instead. The incidental value for milling gave it just enough of a boost where the card would give you a 2 for 1 a lot of the time, provided your deck had at least a few good graveyard effects. Raikou and Caius the Shadow Monarch were the glue for a lot of different strategies, since they gave you a way to clear anything off the board for a really good rate and without any restrictions. Lightsworn would go on to be an amazing deck competitively for many years even after that, though with time it would shed Raikou for even more cards that milled directly, as the speed of the game eventually made flip effects too much of a liability, no matter how good their effects were. And finally, at number 1, we have Rescue Cat. This is a level 4 Earth Beast that can be sent from the field to the graveyard to special summon 2 level 3 or lower Beast-type monsters from your deck, but their effects are negated and they're destroyed during the end phase. Also, you can only activate this effect once per turn. Rescue Cat was the original, actually huge payoff for having a bunch of beasts in your deck. Being able to tutor out 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters is a crazy effect, though it did take until we got synchro monsters for this card to become truly broken. It's important to remember that Cat went through a pretty rough errata in 2017. It used to not negate the effects of the monsters it brought out, and it wasn't a once per turn effect. With the release of the first Beast Tuners, it instantly led to the creation of the short-lived Synchro Cat deck. This strategy was built entirely around Cat, with multiple ways to tutor it out, as well as reusing its effect. This lets you spam out multiple one-card synchros and OTK the opponent with extreme ease. Even with Rescue Cat being put to 1 shortly after all this was possible, it was still played in many different beast decks to maximize its potential. In X-Sabers, this card represents a double hand rip with 2 copies of X-Saber Airbellum, and it also turned on X-Saber Fault Roll by itself. In Gladiator Beast, it could bring out both a Gladiator Beast and a Test Tiger at once. Still, what's most impressive about Rescue Cat is how good it still was even post-errata. It was still a 1-card rank 3 or synchro, But it got even better with the release of the Tri-Brigades. Since the summoned monsters could just be linked off and still trigger their graveyard effects, you could get a big combo off of this one card. It's really impressive to see a card still be amazing as a combo starter so many years later, and after a power level nerf too. Rescue Cat is so iconic it spawned an entire archetype around it, and while it might not be seeing play right now, as long as low level beasts keep coming out, this card's potential will only get higher in the future.